I'm Spence from Accredited Trustees, and I have here my colleague Greig McGuinness, who's trustee representative in Accredited's Glasgow office. And what we're going to talk about today is the new accredited professional trustee framework that has been developed over the last few years and was launched early in 2019 with a view to being implemented. We think now, probably Greig, the latest we think is probably early 2020.
Yeah, the latest intelligence is that they're trying to have a class of accredited people all to achieve at the same time, so no one gets brownie points or bragging rights out of being the first accredited trustee. The plan is to have the first class coming through at the beginning of next year.
So Greig, you were one of the early adopters of the award in pension trusteeship, so you had no worries in terms of an additional exam to sit to become an accredited trustee?
Indeed, I almost as in a test basis sat the exam a couple of years ago when it was first released, and part of our continuous role as a trustee, a professional trustee, to make sure that our co-trustees keep up with best practice, knowledge and understanding. I always took the test of doing the exam so that I could then market it to an extent to co-trustees.
Well, I have to say, whenever I saw the exam was a requirement, like a number, even though I've been working as a trustee for many years, like a number of our colleagues and other trustees in the business, I hadn't actually done any form of exam for some years. But I bit the bullet and sat it in March, thankfully, successfully. It was an interesting having done an exam for a while, but my observation on it was that it's a really good idea to have a basic, like a driving test. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's an exam that is particularly demanding or even test everything that you might need to know as a trustee, but it tests some basic levels of knowledge, and I think it would be fair to say that for anybody who has been working full-time or nearly full-time as a professional trustee for a few years, they should really be able to get the exam fairly quickly. The syllabus for the exam is based very much on the Pension Regulators Toolkit, and you do need to, I think, know a few other bits and pieces, but my feeling is that people who have worked as professional trustees should be able to complete that exam relatively easily.
That was definitely my feelings. It may take a little bit of work for the less experienced. In the modern world of professional trusteeship, we tend to have more of a range than we ever have, including within our own firm. We have people who've primarily from an accounting background or legal background that maybe don't have the traditional experience in the wider pensions environment, which works in a multidisciplinary firm like ours. But they may need slightly more work just because they've not lived and breathed it for decades like we have.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to remember that we're creating, whilst we've had a profession with a small p, we're creating a profession out of nothing almost, properly. And we had to find an exam basis that was a good test, but it's the first step in a long road of developing a proper, robust professional standard, and it's a very good first step to ensure that the people holding themselves out there as experts have a very good foundation knowledge of what the whole world of pension scheme looks like.
Certainly it should be something, I think, that anybody who really has proper experience shouldn't be dissuaded from doing the exam. I think it's something that a little bit of working through the toolkit and just making sure that your knowledge is up to date in a few areas, just in case it slipped. I would tend to have more experience myself working with DB than with DC schemes, so I have to admit I did take a run through the toolkit before I sat the exam on the DC side, just in case there was anything that I missed, although there really wasn't too much that I think that I learned that was new. The second part of the accreditation framework then is fitness and properness. So I think that's going to involve some sort of reference from people within the industry explaining their experience of working with you. I'm not quite sure what the detail of that's going to be, but presumably that will be launched later this year. And then the third bit of it is soft skills. So I've heard various rumours about how they're going to assess soft skills from assessment centres where people weigh up in small groups and role play to multiple choice questions, but soft skills are important as a trustee, I think.
Yeah, it's like any board structure, the pension scheme in its traditional sense is being managed by a committee, and if that committee can't work together, it's not going to be value at the pension scheme. So it's important that the interactions are valuable and properly structured. And whether there's chair of trustees or not, there's always a certain expectation of the professional, because that is their day job, to be overseeing and structuring and making sure the flow happens and that all members of the board have a voice and the voice is heard. So it's important that a professional trustee can make those interactions, but it even goes beyond that. One of the most important parts of being a trustee is being able to speak to the sponsor of the pension scheme, the regulatory bodies, the advisors, the whole universe of everybody that's involved in making a pension scheme work. And if you don't have those soft skills, then you're just not going to get the job done. But it is a hard area for people to try and mark, to judge, to test. Also, having discussed it with members of the PAI, they're on a budget. They don't have an endless budget, so they have to find something that's proportionate, that's doable at a reasonable cost, and it's not too onerous on the professionals themselves. Because whilst it's very important, extremely important, we have a proper profession, that people are properly accredited, that only those people that can prove they have the right skills should be allowed to call themselves professionals. We also have very important jobs of running pension schemes and in charge of billions of pounds, so we can't be expecting people to take too much time away from the day job just to go through an assessment process. So yeah, it's a hard balance of finding something that will work to test it, but it's a very important thing to test.
Well, obviously we'll be looking to the APPT, the Association of Professional Pension Trustees, with interest to see what they introduce there over the next few months. So obviously the accreditation framework that has been developed by effectively the industry with the support of the pension regulator is part of the pension regulator's drive to improve governance standards for pension schemes. What do you think the difference is going to be now for an employer or even a board of trustees who are thinking about bringing a professional trustee onto their board? What difference do you think the accreditation framework will bring?
The accreditation framework in itself should give employers, co-trustees some level of comfort that the person they're picking has already been tested. They've got their driving licence, they're a safe pair of hands. And whilst just now we have a self-regulation, expecting trustees themselves to self-regulate, and for the most part, most professional trustees are very good, very honest, very responsible professionals. But especially in some of the darker side of pensions that we come across, there are people out there that either are not on the level or they've overshot themselves and they don't have the knowledge, experience or processes to be doing the job properly. So it should give the employers, the co-trustees, the members, the comfort that the person they're appointed has the right qualifications, experience, structure to do the job they've been appointed to do. And also I think we may develop that in different conversations. But there are the three different levels. So you'll have trustees that are accredited to be a co-trustee to sit on a board, which is a slightly different skill set from the chair in that will have a different badge, and then we'll have a different badge again for those firms that have the right people to be classed as sole trustees. I think the most important thing is that it allows visibility, very quick visibility, to the buyer that they're buying a product that's fit for purpose. Furthermore, as you say, it's part of a wider strategy for the pensions regulator. It'll be interesting to see how the accreditation process interlinks with the outcome from the most recent consultation on the future of trusteeship. So the need for potentially lay trustees to have regulated knowledge and understanding and lifelong learning, or for mandatory professional trustees. And if there's a mandatory professional trustee, you want to be making sure that the one you've got has been through the process and is properly qualified to be doing the job you're buying them to do.
The other aspect, I don't think it's been without an element of controversy, is that to become an accredited professional trustee, I think, as I understand it at the moment, you have to actually sign up and be party to the professional standards that were introduced by the Association of Professional Pension Trustees, the APPT. And I think that the combination of the accreditation process and the professional standards should probably dissuade some people who maybe picked up a little bit of knowledge over the years, maybe acting as a member nominated trustee or employer nominated trustee on a trustee board, maybe only on one or two schemes. It should maybe dissuade people like that from adopting professional trusteeship as maybe a little bit of a end to their career, ease down into retirement, do a few hours a week because I certainly think that kind of casual approach to becoming a professional trustee, in at least nominally so, hasn't done our industry any particularly good in recent years, and I'm hoping that people will either say, hey, this is something that is worth spending time on. I'm going to invest in it. I'm going to invest in myself. I'm going to get myself up to the right standard. Or, well, I'll maybe do something else. And I think that has got to be a key part of the benefit that will be obtained from the accreditation. Just the fact that it maybe just weeds out some of those slightly more casual people. I think I'd be hopeful that it doesn't discourage people who really could do the job well. Even people who've been maybe doing it well and don't see that many years in the future. I hope they will not be dissuaded from continuing to work properly when they can add value. But inevitably, I think probably some people will maybe move away from seeing this as something they want to do.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's important that first off, the standards. It's important we have professional standards. Every profession has standards. They have to be there. It's almost the thing we couldn't do without. As far as the exam and the soft skill stuff, hopefully that's not too big a thing to put people off, especially as you say, people who may be in the twilight of their trustee career, but still have a few years left. It shouldn't be too big a step for them. And even that the accreditation framework doesn't necessarily need to be the end of the sorts of diligent amateur who's paid but they're not holding themselves out as an expert in general. So for instance, your retiring HR directors who continue to be a remunerated trustee of that one pension scheme, which they know very well. Whilst we still have lay trustees, there will be a place for that, and they possibly do deserve some level of remuneration, as long as they're not holding themselves out to the rest of the market as a general professional. But those general professionals that are very experienced but maybe think they're in the twilight of their career, hopefully either they can remain in the jobs they're in with the people they already know they're good enough without being accredited, as we transition, or they will not see it's too big a step. So I think it was important we found a balance as the industry in having a standard that doesn't scare and dissuade those people from staying involved, but hopefully will evolve in time to make sure new people and younger blood coming into the industry is coming in at the right level, rather than necessarily seeing it as a step into partial retirement, which has been an issue for a long time. People who are possibly beyond their careers as actuaries or lawyers thought being a trustee was a good way to continue to be in the industry beyond their normal career.
The accreditation framework is I suppose, a first pass at it. The one thing I kind of feel is that if I'm, say, engaging a plumber to do some work on my house, I kind of expect them to follow an accepted approach, to have proper processes and procedures, and to follow a methodology, not just make it up as they go along. And I'd certainly like to see the accreditation framework move off more in that direction as time goes on, and be more about process and about ensuring that, you know, if you take a scheme on, you know, we in Dalriada act as trustees of over 200 pension schemes, and we have a process that we follow. Every time we take a pension scheme on, we do a certain number of things, and we do it many times, and we refine it based on our experience, and there are lots of other activities that we have as during the operational scheme, where similarly we've developed very strong processes that we apply and that we audit and ensure that they're being followed. And I think that is the sort of direction I'd personally like to see the standards going. A lot more of it is about having processes in place, and obviously you know, Dalriada would be we think probably the second largest firm of professional pension trustees, and we think that the processes we have might be more elaborate than, say, a sole practitioner or a smaller firm, but that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be processes. There should be clear processes for the main functions that a trustee should be undertaking.
Yes, and it's already recognised in the standards as are, but only at the sole trustee level. That a sole trustee, the firm that's holding themselves out as being a sole trustee, must have accredited and audited processes. And it can only be a matter of time before that's developed throughout all trustees. Even if it's one man, he must have a process. These are the steps you do when you take on a pension scheme. This is the due diligence that you must do on take on. This is the due diligence you must undertake when going through the evaluation process. The question is, how much of those processes will be within the professional trustee standard, and how much of them will be prescribed by the regulator as part of guidance. We're already seeing an expectation that the next set of guidance that comes out of the regulator next year is going to be more prescriptive on what a trustee should and shouldn't do during an evaluation process. So it may be that it's not fully required within one set of standards, because it's already covered that all trustees, be them professional or otherwise, must be following certain standards. But definitely, if you're holding yourself out to be a professional firm, you have to be showing that you're following processes, that most importantly there is peer review, that it's not just one man's idea, and that's when processes become most important. But yeah, it's getting the right marriage of not creating two sets of rules where one will do. It'll be interesting how we develop in conjunction with what comes out of the regulator over the next few years.
Of course, sole trusteeship is a subject in its own right, and
indeed, we can only touch on that just now. That's I
think we're reaching the end of the time that's been allotted to us for this little video. But I think sole trusteeship is something we'll probably pick up in a subsequent video. Anyway, if anybody's been listening, I hope you found this discussion useful, and we will be producing a few more videos on the subject of trusteeship and the strengthening of governance standards as the situation develops over the next months and years. And thanks very much for listening.
Thank you.